Hi everyone, I have renowned historian John Keay with me here today, and we're going to talk about his very illustrious portfolio of books on Indian history.
Yes, my association with India goes back a very long way, and it was, I think, 1965 when I first came here. I had access to a ticket, and so for my 2 weeks holiday, I was in the advertising business at the time. I came to Kashmir because I'd heard there was wonderful trout fishing, and I had my 2 weeks holiday, and then I came back about a year later, having decided to be a sort of dropout for a bit. And I came to live in Kashmir, not just to fish, but to try writing. So India was really my introduction to life as a writer, initially as a freelance journalist.
All your books, whether they are on India or China or anywhere in South Asia, they're not your conventional histories. You really have a knack for picking narratives, and not just narratives, but the minutiae in history, and bringing out the narrative. And I remember in an interview you once said that history should be told through narrative, because then the layman will remember it better, the children will remember it better. So tell us a little bit about why you picked that kind of approach to telling history.
I think there's sort of a lot of misunderstanding about history these days. When we talk about historians, we think of people who teach history or do a lot of historical research and so on. Most of the first famous historians in the English language weren't what we call historians today. People like Gibbon, Macaulay, Carlyle, even Churchill were writers. They were brilliant writers, and they wrote histories which they wanted people to read, a large audience. Nowadays historians are too busy writing books for other historians,
reference in academic texts.
Yes, history has become too academicized, if you like, and so it's always been my idea to try and reach as large an audience as possible. I've never really been interested in chairs and academic history faculties and so on. I mean, I have had a little bit to do with universities, but not very much, and usually as a writer, as someone who can help people to write better rather than as a historian.
It is the only biography you've done.
Yes.
But it is also in some ways using the biography as weaving a larger landscape for South and Central Asia, especially the Himalayas. So can you talk about how that was a little different from the rest of the research that you've done for your earlier books?
Yes, well, as you say, it was my first biography. It was not really a straight biography. It's a kind of a biographical quest. In other words, the reader is invited to try and to join me in exploring the authenticity or otherwise of Gardner's story. And it, as you say, it kind of skips about quite a lot. It starts with the story of his daughter trying to not only to discover what's happened to his fortune, but also to try and rescue his reputation, really, because it had been rather traduced, particularly in the 1920s.
Do you think that through this book you've kind of vindicated his reputation a little bit?
I hope so, yes. I mean, as I would willingly concede, he was obviously quite a rogue. He obviously did exaggerate his story. Someone described it as a life handicapped by adventure.
There are worse things to be.
He packs in so many adventures, so many unlikely discoveries and observations and so on that you have to accept that he was exaggerating. But on the other hand, particularly in the descriptions of what happened in Lahore in the 1840s, his account has been authenticated by all sorts of other Sikh sources and British sources and so on. So there's no reason to suppose that he made up the whole thing.